This may not be the most intense story out there, but it's usually the one I start with when asked if I have any ghost stories. Although I do have some personal stories that may sound more frightening, this is the one that gets me. Many experiences with the paranormal can be explained at least one way or another, even if that explanation is far-fetched. However, no matter how hard I try to rationalize this experience, I can't. I'm genuinely curious if any of you have experienced the same thing. I was 15 and driving around town one night with my friend who was old enough to drive. He was behind the wheel and asked if I was hungry. I was, and he suggested we head over to McDonald's. Both of us being young and broke, I didn't have any money. I suggested we head over to my house, which we were already near anyway, so I could ask my dad for $5. We pull up, and all the lights are off. Not unusual, considering it was roughly midnight. Walking in, everything seemed normal. I had no reason to feel on edge. I call out to my dad asking if he is still awake. From back in his room, which is at the end of the hall, I hear him call back saying he is. Getting to his door, I see that his light is on. His room was positioned so I wouldn't see it from the front of the house. Again, not odd at all. I ask if I can come in quick and hear him once again, clear as day, say, "Yeah, what's up?" I grab the doorknob, and as I do, I see the light underneath the door go out. I open the door fully and say, "Hey, mind if I switch the light on?" "Sure." I flip on the light, and no one is in the room. Not a single person besides me. I call out, "Dad?" and hear him from the other side of the house call back. I'm in the bathroom. Alright, no way. I was officially spooked, but figured maybe I misheard him, and maybe I imagined seeing the light shine under his door. I get to the bathroom door, baffled at this point. "Hey, you in there?" "Yeah, I'm just brushing my teeth. You can open the door." I do, and once again, no one is in there. My dad is and always has been a practical joker. I had no idea how he was pulling this off, but I figured maybe he was downstairs and calling up to mess with me. I call his cell phone and don't hear his phone ringing. About 10 seconds in, he picks up. To cut details on the call, he was a full hour away. He wasn't even home. No one was, but me. I told him what happened, and he of course made a few lighthearted jokes about the house being haunted, not taking it serious at all. In the end, he did let me borrow a $5 bill he had on his dresser, and I ended up getting my McChickens. But that night remains as one of the strangest things I've ever experienced. I've never been one to hear voices or anything of the like. It remains the one experience I have no explanation for, no matter how hard I try to come up with one. What do you think? Did I have a brief mental break? Or was it perhaps something paranormal? I finally decided to share the experience I had while trying the Ouija board. I had always been skeptical about its use. I thought it was just a product of fiction, a marketing tool created to give people hope, and the illusion that everyone can talk with those whose souls and energies still linger in our dimensions. However, I was wrong. The idea of trying it belonged to my cousin. She had a couple of friends who wanted to do the same, so knowing about my past paranormal experiences and my sensitiveness on the matter, she asked me to participate. We met up, and since we didn't have any Ouija board and couldn't buy it, we decided to build it ourselves. It could seem like a stupid idea, like, it's obvious that it's not going to work if you just make it out of paper, but I think that doing this actually contributed to the fixing of our energies to the board. We also spent some hours doing it, as we used a specific font for the letters that we printed, and I decided to personally draw the sun and the moon, which are used by entities to tell whether they're positive or negative. After finishing it, we all went to a park close to my house and started the steps in order to be safe. We burned sage to purify the Ouija board in the place, and we asked to communicate with good entities only. It took us some time, as we also purified the planchette, which was an old glass belonging to my family. But in the end, we were almost sure that we got everything set up and ready. The atmosphere was peculiar. Nobody was at the park, just us. And there was only one streetlight quite close. We were sitting and placed everything on an old table that was already there, mainly used for picnics, I would guess. And we waited to relax to prevent bad spirits to reach us, or whatever. As soon as we put our fingers on the planchette, I felt strange vibrations. We asked if we were already speaking with someone or something, and my feelings stopped. After some minutes of silence, the planchette slowly moved to the left side, without really reaching any letter, and I was scared as hell. We all were, but didn't want to break the contact. It all happened quite fast, but we are sure that what we had may have been some sort of contact with another entity. After we closed the seance, the wind randomly started blowing hard, and the dim streetlight became way more intense. The water dispensers also activated themselves to water the grass. Could have been a coincidence. And I got quite wet. My cousin kept the Ouija board while I kept the planchette, and on the same night she kept it in her room and slept. She woke up at 3:33 a.m. and she had a weird dream that she didn't want to tell. I'm pretty sure that something strange happened. Also because while we kept our fingers on the planchette, and I was looking at the board, my friends say that they saw some kind of shadows quickly passing behind me, and I know that they would never joke about something like that. So these stories all come from growing up in a house that is over a century old in a rural town in southern Virginia. It's long. The earliest one I can remember is from when I was about 7 or so. I'm 22 now. I had just gotten home from school, and I was home alone. My mom had taken my brother to the doctor or something, and my dad was still at work. I guess it's important to try and describe the vague layout of that house. The fridge is in the utility room, which unlike in most houses was the equivalent of a sunroom. In order to get to the fridge, you have to either just come in the back door or walk through the kitchen from the living room and den. I went to the fridge to look for a snack and looked outside and saw about 10 figures that were entirely gray and had no faces. I learned in high school that these are called shadow people, and it's good they were outside and not in the house. The next story I remember is from when I was about 9. It was Christmas Eve, and my dad and I were decorating the tree in the family room, different from the living room. That is at the front of the house. My mom was in her room wrapping the rest of the presents. My brother was at his dad's place. Now, it is important to say that my mom's bedroom was right above the family room, and above her room is the attic. We were almost done with the tree, and my dad had picked me up so I could put on the topper when he hesitated. I asked him if he heard a rocking chair. He said he did. I put the topper on, and he sat me down. We decided to go up and see if my mom had brought down my great-grandma's rocking chair out of the attic. We knocked on her door, so she could hide presents that weren't wrapped and came in. She didn't have the chair down, so we asked her if she heard the chair. She hadn't, so we decided to check the attic. The rocking chair had a stack of other stuff on top of it, but it was rocking. The next one was really scary at the time. I was about 12. Half of the attic was converted into a bedroom for me to have more space. My dad built it, and let me tell you, he was great at making furniture and boxes and the like. But houses? No. The floor was incredibly thin, and my mom could hear me walking all the time. I had stayed up late this night reading. I was in bed reading with the light on. When the door to the attic opened, I heard footsteps coming towards my bed, and then the imprint of a knee on the foot of my bed. I panic and throw my blanket over my head and wait. Eventually I can feel the pressure ease off the bed and hear the footsteps retreat. I then hear the attic door close. I pull the blanket down and get up to look at the door, and the slide lock is in place. On my way back to bed, my mom yells at me to stop walking around and go to sleep. The next morning I asked her if she heard walking before she yelled at me. She said no. The last one is short and I don't remember it at all. This is mostly from my mom, so I'm not sure how accurate it is. I was about 14, and it was the middle of the summer, so I made a pallet on the floor to sleep. My bed was a loft bed, and the AC in that house doesn't really work well on the second floor. I had taken over my brother's old room at this point. I was sleeping on the floor, and my mom burst into my room yelling at me, asking who I had in there with me, and me, groggy, and just stunned awake, just asking what's going on and trying to tell her I was alone. She said she heard a deep voice in my room with me, so she thought I'd snuck someone into my room somehow. There was no one in there with me. So just some context for you. My grandparents and great-grandfather used to own and live on a farm. A bit run down by the time I was born, but I remember it well. My great-grandfather died in an annex to the farm, where he had his own living space, etc. The farm itself was getting old, a few hundred years old from the original cottage it was built around, so my grandparents decided to sell it to a pretty wealthy guy, let's call him Dan, who renovated it and made it look real nice again and modern. We stayed good friends after he took ownership, so we go there often enough. Now I've had dreams of ghosts at the farm, but never experienced it myself, but I shall tell you what others there have experienced. My grandfather had dreams of his dad, who was my great-grandfather, who died in the annex, come to visit him on the night merely to tell him that he was gone. Dream or real? He was never sure. Also the usual familiar smells in certain rooms, nothing crazy. My grandmother had less aggressive happenings than others, such as footsteps that fade off only for a door to slowly swing open, the smell of tobacco smoke from the laborer that once worked for them, and the piano would play a key every now and then. The two dogs they had would go crazy in the room with the piano, but they always barked at me and my brother, so I thought they were bastards anyway. My grandmother was always interested in my dreams about the farm, as if I was a paranormal investigator or something. But anyway, various creaks and knocks are always heard, but it's an old place. One could easily shrug it off as wind or the dog moping around. One night, Dan was sitting in the lounge watching TV with his young son when he swears something touched his hair quite blatantly. Dan shrugs it off as he is skeptical about such things. Later that week, lying in bed, the call of nature wakes Dan up. Also, he notices that it's surprisingly cool in the room for the time of year, but then he can't get up. Something is physically forcing him down in his bed. Dan is a giant man as well. He can't even struggle. It's as if a weight is on every inch of his body. It seems nearly 5 minutes of oppression before he shouts, "Fuck off me." The weight subsides and he can move again. Either way, he never ended up going to the bathroom until morning after that. My family never had a bad experience at the farm with regards to the supernatural. I personally found some rooms creepy, and the long corridors unnaturally spooky. But at the time, I never felt threatened. I sometimes wonder whether it's family members' ghosts, which is why it's more amiable towards us than visitors to the farm.